Welcome to the very first episode of the Swallow Your Soul podcast, where the dogmen howl and the souls get swallowed. I am your tour guide to another dimension, JB. Keep in mind that once you go through the portal, there's no coming back. This is a brand new podcast, folks, that will be covering all things paranormal, 80s, comedy, horror movies, and a wide range of other oddities and anomalies. With us tonight, we have Miles Shapiro. Miles, are you ready to get your weird on?
Justin, I am ready. In the Navy, we used to say, always ready. I'm happy to be your co-pilot today, and I'm excited to get going.
All right, that's what I like to hear, man. Thanks for joining us. Brief introduction. My name's Justin Bennett, grew up in the Waterford, West Bloomfield area. I've known Miles for over 30 years, and when I met the little dude back in the day, we basically hit it off because we loved anything paranormal, conspiracy, UFO, alien, you name it. We liked it all. And it just coincided with the advent of the internet. Some of you young kids probably can't even fathom what it was like to not have internet, but there was a time, folks. There was a time. But that's kind of how I got into it, just watching videos, watching documentaries. Obviously, we always knew about the Roswell crash. That was kind of the big thing back in the day. But Miles, how did you get into this crazy stuff?
There's a few different things. My dad and I used to go rent movies, and we would usually pick out strange movies or horror movies. And I remember talking to him about aliens. We watched the movie Communion together, which back in the 80s. I know you love that movie. I do too. And I also had some books when I was a little kid that were about supernatural things. So it's always been something I thought about. You know, I listened to countless hours of Coast to Coast AM. And I still, every day almost, a YouTube video or podcast where they're talking about weird stuff. So I enjoy it.
Very good. So for this very first episode, folks, we are going to go through a list of a lot of the topics that we are going to present in this podcast. We're kind of just going to touch upon them and give you a brief little introduction to the subject so that you know what to expect in further episodes. So without further ado, let's get started. The first subject, and it's a very big one that will probably encompass many, many episodes. We're going to keep it fresh. We're going to get We're going to get different guests in here to bring new information and just keep it really fresh for you people. But the topic is ETs, aliens, visitors, UFOs, UAPs. You know the topic, folks. We're going to go through all the types of visitors reported from people. We're going to go through all the different crafts. We're going to touch upon the Men in Black. Who are these guys? Where are they coming from? Why are they so old-timey? We're going to go through the gimbal, the Tic Tac, the Go Fast UAP videos that the military filmed. And basically these videos came out. You can Google those, gimbal, Tic Tac, Go Fast. Are these beings, are these vehicles from outer space? Are they interdimensional? Are they from Earth? Do they have a base on the moon? Who knows? We'll get into all that. USOs, unidentified submerged objects. We'll get into that stuff. They're not just flying through the sky. They are going through the water, and they're going through solid objects in some reports. They're transmedium. The Navy has seen a lot of these objects in swarms out in the middle of the ocean where it's impossible for a swarm of drones to come there. There's just nowhere they could come from. And these UFOs, UAPs are swarming them, and they're there for days, weeks, whatever, a very long time. How are these things being propelled? Do they have a power source on board? Is the power source somewhere else in another dimension? Are they warping gravity in order to move? Why don't G-forces seem to affect these vehicles? Bob Lazar, he mentioned that element 115 might be a fuel for some of these flying saucers. Some people have reported the flying saucer, the craft, is actually alive itself, a sentient being, if you will. Some humans that have been abducted have been conditioned to fly these craft. I've heard many, many podcasts where the people involved in an abduction were basically, not forced to fly it, but were allowed to fly it. And then, of course, with these stories come a lot of the times you'll hear that consciousness was involved in one way or another, whether they basically thought of a location and flew there, or, consciousness was involved in actually flying the ship. We'll get into abductions. What are the purpose of these abductions? Is it the government doing it? Is it aliens? We'll get into all that. Cattle, human mutilations, crop circles, injuries from interactions with these crafts, and we'll get into some out of place artifacts too. These really weird artifacts that show up in 500 million year old rock that there's really just no explanation to how these artifacts got there. Pyramids, giant granite blocks. Did aliens help? Were humans able to do that? Did we lose technology? That type of stuff. Bases, alien bases. Are they on the moon, Antarctica, Mars, on Earth, in the ocean? We'll go through that. And then, of course, with the beings, there's a hierarchy, in a lot of these stories. The little gray aliens seem to be the worker bees that are involved with a lot of abductions and do kind of the medial tasks. So we'll get into all those different beings that people have reported seeing. And there's also metallic studies being done, whether these UAPs have dropped pieces of metal. Are they from crashed saucers? But there is an extensive field of study going on with these metals. A lot of them actually have been taken from people that had some sort of implant or alleged implant in their body. So we'll get into that. After that, we have a category covering the contact modalities. And basically, this is saying that consciousness is primary. It's basically the contact modalities is a new term used by many researchers now instead of the word paranormal. It's basically all the diverse ways that humans are piercing the veil of our 3D reality and are having perceived contact with higher forms of intelligence. So it's basically broken down into a number of subcategories. One of them are near-death experiences, and some people say that's the most important one out of this list. But you have out-of-body experiences, including astral travel. Lucid dreaming can kind of turn into that. You have UFO, UAP encounters. You have contact with perceived dead people, ghosts and spirits. You have experiences with hallucinogenic journeys through DMT, psilocybin, LSD. And then you can basically, another contact modality is remote viewing and other forms of clairvoyance. And then, of course, channeling, mediumship. You can have shamanistic ceremonies with rituals that kind of get you break through this veil, so to speak. But, a near-death experience is very common to bringing people into the reality that these bodies are just, some people call them meat sacks. They're just, a flesh and bone way to hold our consciousness. And when our consciousness leaves, it continues on, basically. Miles, why don't you take over from here and hit us with a little knowledge about these shadow beings?
Absolutely, Justin. Excellent job describing those topics, by the way. Shadow beings are really curious entities. They're described a lot. I first heard about them on Art Bell. They're often seen in the corner of your eye. They're also seen often in sleep paralysis incidents. They say who they are, what they want, where they're from. very mysterious. You may have heard of some of them. I think one of the most common ones is called the Hat Man, or the Man in the Hat. And he's basically, it's just a shadow with a fedora type hat that he's wearing. Sometimes they can be aggressive. They can be found like on your chest, sitting on your chest as you're sleeping. Really terrifying stuff. Sometimes they have, red eyes. They radiate fear. Some people have called them smoke beings because they look basically like smoke that's solidified into a human form. But people have, successfully fought them off. Maybe I'll tell my story of when I had sleep paralysis and how I got over that. But there were shadow beings involved with that, and I didn't like it. But yeah, some people say that they've seen shadow animals, or maybe they're not really what they seem. Maybe they're not terrifying, and they help but manifest in a way that's scary to us. I'm not sure. Another topic that we will likely talk about is time travel. It's a fun thing to think about. There's a lot of there's talks about the Philadelphia experiment, some of the things that Tesla was working on. He may have created or discovered time travel at the end of his life. That's a whole rabbit hole. There's also items from the past that might be explained through time travel, and time travel could possibly explain a lot of these weird phenomena that we talk about. Interesting, fun topic. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Also, John Tidor is another one. He was a famous alleged time traveler. For those two topics, shadow beings and time travel, I'm really looking forward to talking about that.
Excellent, man. Yeah, it sounds like some good stuff there. We'll also get into cryptids, cryptozoology. The most famous, of course, is Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, skunk ape. They're all kind of the same thing, different areas of the globe. Basically, they are giant ape creatures, if you will. Humanoid, most of them are, they have human features along with ape. So are they leftover? Have they hidden? Have these things just been there the whole time and hiding? Are they somehow interdimensional? There's been a lot of reports of these Bigfoot being seen alongside of UAPs flying through the sky. What's the relationship between these things? Of course, you have dogmen, and that is a big thing here in Michigan. I've heard a lot of stories around where we live. Not necessarily within a couple hours probably, but there's a lot of woods here in Michigan, and a lot of dogmen stories come with those woods. So some interesting stuff there. We can get into Mothman, very interesting. In fact, they're still seeing Mothman over at the O'Hare Airport in Chicago, from what I hear. He's seen a lot over there. Chupacabra down in Puerto Rico, Mexico. It's kind of like a hairless type of lizard dog type of thing. Most likely sucks the blood out of its victims type of vampiric dog. Loch Ness Monster, we all know. Basically, a plesiosaur dinosaur in the Lake Loch Ness over in Scotland. We'll get into that. There's kind of the same thing going on down in Lake Erie with a creature named Bessie. There's the Dover Demon, the Jersey Devil, and countless other ones. So we'll get into all those and kind of have people interview people on those subjects and kind of dig into them to see what the possibilities are with those things. There's also a number of areas of high strangeness on this planet. One of them in our own backyard, right there on the southern tip of Lake Michigan, the Michigan Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle, the Alaskan Triangle, and there's actually 9 other triangles on the planet Earth. And a lot of these areas have geomagnetic anomalies associated with them where, you have a compass, you fly through there, you take a boat through there and your compass goes crazy. You don't know which way to go. That seems to be kind of a common thread with these areas. Skinwalker Ranch, we're going to touch upon that. That'll probably be its own episode. There's a lot going on there. Just a whole lot of these different aspects of paranormal anomalies going on there. But Miles, what else are we going to be hitting, man?
Thank you, Justin. Good stuff. Good stuff. Another topic that we'll probably cover is reincarnation. This is a very interesting topic that I've run across throughout the years. It's some pretty solid evidence that it's a real thing. There's been some stories and reports of children who remembered their past lives. They remembered a lot of specifics. They could basically verify, up to, 40, 50 details, locations they were, people that they knew. And the only way to explain it would be, to believe them that they had that life. And you have to wonder if everybody's reincarnated, how do some people remember and others don't? Why are we reincarnating over and over again? What's the purpose? If we're supposed to learn, but we don't remember our past lives, then how are we going to learn? I don't know. So there's a lot of interesting questions about it, interesting implications. There's also the reincarnation soul trap theory, rising in popularity. I know David Icke has echoed some of that, and others who are well known in the conspiracy realm. It kind of connects conspiracy and spirituality together. So it's an interesting theory, and it's horrible, and I hope it's not true because, Anyway, we may talk about that, but reincarnation is a fascinating topic. But we're also going to talk about the quantum hologram theory, as well as records. These are also very interesting. Akashic records, I've heard people able to access through astral projection or remote viewing. And it's basically like the spiritual library of Alexandria, where every single detail is recorded somehow. Which leads me to the next theory, is simulation theory. And if all of our data is accessible in some kind that could be explained with simulation theory, which is basically the movie The Matrix. There's two different types of simulations. I think that's A and B. One of them is like The Matrix, where your body is somewhere else and you're plugged into it, kind of like VR. Another one is that people are just digital creations that are on a computer. And there's good arguments for both. This theory was really rising in popularity, I think about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Mostly it was popularized with Nick Bostrom. He's a professor in England. I forget which school, but he wrote about it, and he wrote this book called Superintelligence, which is about AI and the implications. So he's a really good philosopher, interesting guy, really smart. I understand some of what he says. But yeah, those are all topics. We've got reincarnation, Akashic records, and simulation theory, all of which could be many, many episodes on their own.
Yeah, very interesting. Antarctica, we're going to get into that. The Perry-Reese map. It's a map that was created when most of Antarctica was under ice. So the question is, who created this map, and how did they basically get the shoreline perfectly exact? We'll dig into that. Some people reported Nazi bases in Antarctica. Lost civilizations seem to be quite prevalent down there, according to witnesses. Possibly Atlantis. There are mysterious structures down there. It's very, very hot with UAP activity from what we hear. Possibly bases, UFO crashes down there. And then what I hear probably the most is that it's an access to hollow earth. It's a way, it's basically a tunnel where these UAPs can go down there and fly into hollow earth and do their thing. So we'll get into all that stuff. But with that said, we wanted to give you a brief breakdown of what we're going to be talking about. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we will not only be paranormal, but we'll have a lot of comedy in there, horror movies, wide range of other stuff. But the paranormal will be the majority of it. We're going to be having guests join us. But we just wanted to say, you know, if you've had an encounter, if you've had any type of experience, please don't be shy. Please reach out to us. You can email us at swallowyoursoulpodcast@gmail.com. You can find our podcast on YouTube under Swallow Your Soul Podcast. We'd love to hear from you, and if you want to stay anonymous, we can do that as well. We have a 2-parter coming out for you next on UAPs, Visitors, ETs, so be sure to check that out. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Stay tuned for your next episode of the Swallow Your Soul podcast.